From the View My Sports studios, it's The Breakdown with your hosts, Roger Tillis and Chuck Olesker.
Today's guest on The Breakdown, he's a cross-country and track runner for the University of North Florida. Welcome, Chris Haynes. Hi, welcome to another edition of The Breakdown. I'm your host, Roger Tillis, joined on my right, of course, by our co-host, Chuck Olesker. And today we have got a fantastic guest. We have Chris Haynes. He is a member of the cross-country team and track team at the University of North Florida. Chris is a distance runner, and we're going to be talking about everything running, which is Chuck's favorite thing to do, as you can tell.
That's right. I am a running physical specimen.
If you've ever seen him run to the refrigerator to get another beer or run to get another plate of wings, you'll understand.
Run to the bathroom.
That's right. Chris, thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to sharing some information, for all those out there that have a certain idea of, what it is that they want to do as far as running and what their options are in high school, what their options are at the college level. And it's funny, there's a big difference. I think there's a difference from school to school, but in region to region as far as track teams. I've seen high school teams compete in steeplechase. Yet I've seen regions like down here in the South, my school didn't have steeplechase. I don't think you guys had steeplechase, not until you got into AAU, right?
No. It's very rare that a high school would compete in the steeplechase. It's more like a luxury event. You don't compete in that event on the state level. And it's just not a popular event that many people do until you get to the collegiate level.
I've watched it, running in general is real popular, but throw water and things that I have to fall over, and I can make a big enough fool. I did make a big enough fool of myself on the hurdles, that was. Well, we'll get into all of that, but there is so much to know. I think as a runner, as a parent, there are some outstanding coaches out there. Coach Mack, I'll put a big plug in for you out there. She's our track and our cross country advisor, and she does a great job. And there are a lot of great coaches like her. I think Coach McWilliams, who I'm referring to, Krista McWilliams.
She's a great coach.
Yeah, there's, but the coaches. I tell you, if you've ever gone to track meet, go to not just a meet, go to one of these classics where they have multiple teams competing over the course of a couple days. And watch it, how much has to go on. How the coaches pull it off is beyond me. There's just so much going on. All the different events, all the kids. Some of these teams come in with their track team has more kids on it than the graduating class. It's amazing. Right. So you can't always, as a parent or the athlete, rely on the coach to be able to have all the answers for everything, especially when it comes to recruiting and what you need to do and the things that you need to be focusing on. And so that's why we've brought Chris in to hear his story and find out some of the do's and don'ts, the things that worked, and, again, reiterate the things that we know do work. And we'll go from there. So anyway, again, thanks, Chris. Let me ask you something. Now, runners don't just pop up and, hey, I'm a runner. Obviously. When you were a young kid, were you just running all over the place and you just liked to run, or were you in other sports? How did you start getting into competitive running?
I started playing soccer when I was 5 years old, and I carried soccer year-round up until high school, and I sort of got burnt out of the sport of soccer, and it wasn't as fun for me. And then I took up running my sophomore year of high school, and it just sort of happened.
So you were kind of a late bloomer from a competitive running. Wow.
Yeah, I never ran competitively, and it just happened in high school. I
just
decided to try out.
That is out. Now, if that's not a lesson for you, these kids, you feel like, I got to train from the womb, otherwise I'm going to be behind the curve in the competition. Well, here is a perfect example. And we've had situations and examples of this that we've shared in the past. But here's a great example where someone who started late in high school, just started the sport, not just started the recruiting process, but just got into the sport. And then here he is competing at the collegiate level. It can be done.
Yep.
It can be done. Now, when you first started, did you just start in cross country, or did you go out for the track team and just kind of find your niche? How did all that take place?
I went I went out for cross country my sophomore year, and then that year I ended up making it to the state meet.
Wow.
And my first year trying out, and I had a great coach though. Coach Donovan and Coach Walkos were there helping me, and then they told me that I was gonna be good.
You were a natural. Yeah.
Very nice.
That's cool. That's cool. Now at the high school level, especially, at that time, so here you are, you're being told, hey, you got something special, you need to keep it going. What kind of things were you doing? I mean, obviously you go to practice, there's the typical practice and you follow that regime. Were you doing anything, any other training, aspects? Were you competing in outside meets? What other things other than just going to practice were you doing to kind of get better?
I participated in summer track, but a lot of the top-notch teams, they actually do outside training in the summers and in the winters. In the summers, they run a lot of miles to get ready for the cross-country season, and then the same thing is in winter. It's like a phase. It's like in the summer, you spend the whole summer building this big base to get ready for the upcoming cross-country season to be successful. Me, on the other hand, I was doing other track races to stay in shape. I don't regret doing it, but there's definitely more I could have done. I could have run a lot more miles because that's what gives you the foundation to be successful in cross country.
Gotcha.
So,
and again, and we talked about this before we went on the air. At the high school level, the cross country races are 5Ks, 3.1 miles. Okay. So then when you get into the collegiate level, the cross country race, are they still just 5Ks or are they extended?
And on the collegiate level, you move up to 8-kilometer races and 10-kilometer races. But for women, it's only 5K, 6K. So they don't move up much or they stay the same.
Gotcha. Okay. That's really interesting. That's, and people think, well, to run cross country, you just have to go out and, run distance, from day to day. It's not just distance. It's, you track that distance, but then I imagine you would then try to push yourself to get that distance time down. And so you're timing yourself as well, not just going out and jogging, around the block a few times.
Right, exactly. You spend most of your summer doing the easy miles, maybe a quick tempo every now and again, every couple weeks. But then when you get into the season, that's when it's time to start doing some fast repetitions, mile repeats, 800-meter repeats. And then you get maybe half the recovery time. You might run a mile in 5 minutes and get 2 minutes recovery. Then you run another mile in 5 minutes, and you just do that 6 times.
Whew, man.
5 minutes, that's all you get.
Yeah.
5 minutes? Oh.
See, I'd rather like run a 200 and have a 5. I want the opposite. But really, we joke around about the running aspect. But obviously, you guys are phenomenal athletes because, and I've gone to some of these, run for the pies and run for this and run for that, and I hardly could drive the distance, let alone run it. And I see you guys out there. Matter of fact, you were out, I think, at this past Run for the Pies in Jacksonville, Florida, and you guys took off, and I'm like, geez, is this what? Are they just warming up? And I'm like, oh my God, they started the race, and you guys really book for 5K. It's almost like a sprint the whole way. It is amazing how fast you guys run at that distance and then have a kick left. It just, and everyone's smiling afterwards. It's like, yeah, that was fun. I'm over in the bushes throwing up, and
I'm on the ambulance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really, runners, and you get a lot of knock like, all you have to do is go out and run. Man, I'm telling you, it is a phenomenal sport, and to be able to push yourself. The thing is, you don't have someone behind you going, go. It's
right.
You, and then of course when you're competing, obviously, you're trying to keep up or stay ahead, but in practice, it's not like you've got a coach, necessarily barking at you the whole time while you're in stride.
Yeah, right.
So you really are dependent upon yourself. You have to be very self-disciplined and self-motivated.
Right.
I mean, do you struggle with that, or how do you push yourself to kick it into that next gear?
Oh man, it's definitely tough. You're right. You do have to be very self-disciplined to do this sport, and I think having teammates helps push you along because nobody really wants to go out and run by themselves. You're running 80 to 90 miles a week. I mean, if you're doing that all by yourself, then it's not as fun as
It'd be a 1 week. It'd be a 1 week sport because
Right,
after a
yeah.
week you'd stop.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Definitely.
Wow. Now, how many athletes, and you may or may not know this, but I mean, as far as, let's say, cross country, on the men's collegiate team, how many athletes do you have on the roster?
Last year we had a very small team. We only had about 7 or 8 guys, and our coach did some recruiting, and now we have twice as many.
Oh, wow.
So we have a lot of
Outstanding.
incoming freshmen, a lot of underclassmen, and hopefully we can do some good things.
Yeah, that's great.
This fall.
Now, are there limits as to how many can be on the roster, how many can actually compete in a race at a time?
Yes.
What's that limit?
Well, in the regular season, I believe you can have almost as many as you want. I mean, it goes up to about 10 to 12 maybe, but in the championship season, we're in the Atlantic Sun Conference, you can only race 9 runners. And when you get to the NCAA, NCAA championship level, you can only race 7.
Gotcha.
So then
Okay.
that narrows it down to your best guys. You can only race your best guys.
Excellent. All right, now let me ask you: when you were in high school, and we'll say after you realized that you were a pretty good runner, and your coaches, gave you some of that confidence as well. At that time, did you start setting your sights on, maybe I could run at the collegiate level? I mean, was it something you thought about, or if not, then when did that start entering your mindset?
It started entering my mind my junior year. That's when colleges started to contact me, and then I realized, hey, I can actually get a scholarship running, something that I just took up for fun, as a hobby to just keep me busy on top of school. But then my coaches told me that I could possibly get a scholarship, and then so I took it a little bit more serious.
Did you feel like all of a sudden, like you said, you were doing something for fun and you were enjoying it? All of a sudden, you have the coaches paying attention from college. Did you feel compressed? Like all of a sudden, all the eyes were on you, and did you feel pressured, or was it motivating?
A little bit of both, because you have to hit certain times. Obviously, the faster your times are, the bigger scholarship you get. So the little bit of pressure came from wanting to hit these times to set a benchmark to get a good scholarship to go to school, and then at the same time, it was motivating because I wanted to push my body to see how far I could go in high school before I entered college. So.
Outstanding.
A bit of both.
Outstanding. Yeah, and in high school, you probably had a lot of competition. I think during the time that you were in, there were a lot of, and there always seems to be some pretty good runners, but I think there were some pretty marquee athletes. I know I went to one of the classic track meets and actually saw you running, and there were some pretty good fellas out there.
Yeah.
In reference to that, you have this competition level, and you think, okay, well, these are the guys that, I'm going to always be at the front of the pack with. These are the guys that we're going to be trying to nudge. Now, when you get to the college level, like a lot of sports, it's like the best of the best. Is it like, oh my God, even the last place guy is better than I ever could imagine? It's just, did you really see a huge jump in that competitive level from that kind of competition that you had in high school?
Oh, definitely. Even in our conference alone, I went from winning the conference in high school to being the 8th man on my team on the college level, and then the conference I'm placing 40th out of 100, and I'm like, whoa, I'm not used to this. So it's a lot of work.
Maybe it may be 2 or 3 pairs of legs in front of you at the end of the race, not not 30 or 40.
Right.
That's
Right. Yeah.
Well, and again, that kind of that's that extra motivation. Of course, you grow and you it's not like you peak in high school in the sport. You continue growing just like any other sport, be it football, baseball, basketball, whatever. At what point now, when you were in college, at what point did you start, where you had that growth spurt and that skill spurt, if you will? At what point did you start kind of like, okay, I'm one of these guys now. I'm not number 40 now. Look at me. How long did it take you to really ramp up and start competing heavy at the collegiate level?
Probably most of my freshman year, and that summer following 2011, I really trained hard that summer, and then I came back, and then I was one of the top runners on my team and one of the top in the conference, and I showed a lot of improvement, and then I just kept on training, and then my junior year, I stepped it up another notch, and now I'm in my senior year ready to do good things.
Outstanding. Sports Illustrated cover. I can see it right now. You saw him here first.
That's right.
Well, now let's turn back to Haynes a little bit. You were a soccer guy. So when you got into soccer at the high school level and you were playing in, like you said, you played forever, you got burned out. I mean, when you started playing soccer at the high school level, did you have thoughts like, I'm a high school soccer player, I'm going to try to take my game to the collegiate level? I mean, did you have designs of college with soccer at that point, or was it not even a thought in your head?
Soccer, it was just fun for me. It wasn't a thought in my head for going to college for soccer, but I didn't. It started to get really competitive, and I'm a competitive person, but a lot of the players we were a lot of individuals and not much of a team. In soccer, when you get to that level, I think you have to rely more on your team chemistry rather than everybody's individual talents.
Sure.
You have to work together and come together as a team, and I didn't feel like the team was for me. I felt like it was a team of individuals, so then I decided to pursue different ventures.
Gotcha. Boy, and that's an important lesson I think we all at one point or time learn. And I tell you, the sooner you can learn it, the better, and especially as an athlete, whether it be soccer or any team sport. I tell you, even the individual sports, such as cross country, wrestling, track and field, where you are dependent upon yourself and your abilities, yet you still have a team. There's still that team dynamic, and when you lose that dynamic, you're exactly right. It becomes no fun, because usually the individuals that are their own separate athlete pretty much are their own separate person as well. There's not a whole lot of friendships going on there, and it just kills the dynamic of sport. And like you said, that fun aspect. So It's good to hear you point that out, and the fact that and as a lesson to our younger athletes that are out here listening, you really want to keep it fun. You want to have those relationships, those friendships, and work together. Championships aren't won with just individuals.
No.
And that's just the way it is. So tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into some more detail, talk a little bit about the recruiting aspects with Chris here, and see how things worked out. Well, obviously we know they worked out, but we'll say what got them to that point. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Are you a high school athlete, parent of a high school athlete, maybe a high school coach or a college coach looking for a high school athlete, or just a fan of high school and college sports? Then you need the ViewRecruit mobile recruiting app. It's got everything. Athletes can create profiles, including their highlight videos. They can use the Recruit Network to send their profiles directly to college coaches. If a coach likes your profile, great. You get a notice directly on your mobile device and receive an email to boot. College coaches can receive updates directly on their devices and use the search function to find the talent that fits their program. Whether you're an athlete or a college coach, it's like having your very own recruiting department right at your fingertips. Download the ViewRecruit app now on iTunes for your iPhone, iPad, or iPod Touch. Be part of the #1 high school athletics and college coaching network. Get it today, the ViewRecruit mobile recruiting app. Hi, we're back. All right, thanks again for joining this edition of The Breakdown. I'm Roger Tillis, your host. Again, joined here with fantastic guest, Chris Haynes, runner from the University of North Florida. And to his right, our fantastic engineer and co-host, Chuck Olesker. You're probably thinking, what, do you lose a bet or something?
Yeah,
Now
really.
we joke around a lot.
Yeah.
No, Chuck's the man. I tell you, without his expertise, he may not say much, but boy, he packs a powerful punch. He's the one behind the scenes on this show, by gosh.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Chuck, you have our Athlete of the Week, the ViewMySport.com Athlete of the Week that you want to talk about. Fire away.
Absolutely. We have another special individual, a member of the class of 2014 from the University School Nova Southeastern down in Fort Lauderdale, Kayla Fennell Chen.
Nice.
She's a defensive specialist on a volleyball team. She also runs track, and she's an emerging artist. I've had some success out there in the art world as well. So congratulations to Kayla for being ViewMySport.com's Athlete of the Week.
All right, congratulations, Kayla. Yeah, I think we've had another athlete from the Nova University School. Yeah,
that's right.
So that's great. Keep them coming, and keep the grades up. And I would love to hear other interests that the kids are into beyond their sport. Be it art or whatever the case may be. That's fantastic. So thanks again for using ViewMySport.com. We hope you're finding the success that we're trying to put out there. And if there's anything that we can do, just let us know, and that's what we're here for. So, and speaking of another Athlete of the Week, actually, we have an athlete right here, Chris Haynes. Outstanding runner with the University of North Florida. And again, Chris, thank you so much for being here and being our guest on the show and sharing your information. That'll be helpful, hopefully, to the youth runners out there.
I hope so.
Yeah, you don't want them to fail and then go, man, it was that guy on that show, Nah, you're doing great. You're doing great. I want to ask you now, when you were in high school and again, coaches started contacting you and whatnot, how did that all go down? You said it was your junior year. And, of course, you're competing. You're thinking about the potential of going to college. Was it the college coaches that started ringing your bell, or were you getting your information in front of coaches? I mean, tell us a little bit about how all that started going down.
Okay. As my time started to get better and then my grades started to improve, I started to get contact from different coaches in Florida. Mm-hmm. Some out-of-state coaches wanted me to run for their team.
Nice.
And I wasn't very proactive about contacting coaches, and they were more contacting me. Mm-hmm. But if I could do it all over again, I would actually be more proactive. And I think it's important to get your information out there and sort of market yourself. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be a hassle to coaches, but you definitely want to be a little proactive. But I always let my running and then my grades do the talking.
There you go.
So.
Excellent. Well, and that's a good combination. I mean, you want to have something to market if you're going to contact the coaches. Make sure,
right.
And that doesn't mean you have to be the superstar, but if you know that this is what you're going to do, you want to make sure the coaches are paying attention, knowing where you're at, and watching and seeing your performance. Now, what kind of you said you had out of state? What kind of coaches were these? All Division I? Because you're competing Division I right now. I mean, we're
right.
talking at the pinnacle of the collegiate world. As far as sports go, what all kind of schools and coaches were contacting you?
I actually had a lot of different perspectives. I had Morehouse College in
Very nice.
Georgia, and then I had Yale.
Wow.
Who wanted to contact me. Princeton was one, and a couple of smaller schools that weren't on the Division I level, and the rest of them were in Florida. So,
very nice.
So I had a few options.
I would say so. Now, it's funny. During the break, we were talking about grades and the importance, and I mean, you just brought something up there. You talk about Princeton and Yale, and really any school, especially today, they are really focusing more heavily on the grade aspect. But when you start getting in, to the Ivy League, I mean, that's pretty amazing. Now your grades, You had pretty good grades, but share that information with our audience, because you weren't exactly a 4.2er. I mean, tell us a little bit about where your grades were and what your advice is regarding that.
Right. I think it's important as soon as you enter high school to take your academics very seriously, because that, in the end, that's what's going to get you through the door. I mean, you're there to get an education. Mm-hmm. You're there to pursue your sport and excel in your craft, but you're also there to get an education that'll lead to a job after college and after you're done competing.
Sure.
So I never had the outstanding grades like you said. I had a 3.3 when I graduated. The letters coming from the Ivy Leagues was actually a shock to me, and I never saw that coming. I thought I was going to get a bunch of letters from in-state schools, and that was it. But it's something I thought about pursuing, but I like to be in Florida, close to home, so I'm comfortable here.
I was going to ask you, with the offers, especially the out-of-state and whatnot, what was your motivation? I mean, obviously, you've got, a menu of schools in front of you that you can choose from with these offers. What was your number one deciding factor? In other words, as you're looking at these schools, everybody kind of has a path, if you will, that they follow as far as what attracts them to school. Some don't even think about it. And of course, we talk about this all the time. Yep. You've got to research the school. What do they have beyond the sport? What do they have to offer you? Are you a good fit? Are you comfortable there? The class size is okay. Location, be it, a sunny state like Florida, or do you want to go to Minnesota? I mean, these things you have to consider. You have got to. Now, beyond being close to home, I mean, what were some of the factors that you were taking into consideration?
A couple of the factors were, like you mentioned, class size. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel comfortable being in a large university. Mm-hmm. UNF is like a smaller school, but it's emerging. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a program that's developing. And I think somewhere down the road, it'll turn into one of those bigger schools like FSU in Florida, in Miami. But it's a program, it's in a process, it's developing, and I think the program will do well. I've always excelled better in like smaller class setting. I've come to find out I don't really like the big classroom with 1,000 students.
Yeah, I was going to say you're in an amphitheater.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So
now, being in Florida, of course, because obviously you can find small schools outside of Florida. You also said that you like being close to home, and I think a lot of kids, especially when they're excited and they're first thinking of going away to school, they don't think of that distance, Right. And I know, Chuck, this was something that you guys had to go through with your son as well. I mean, it's exciting, but after that newness wears off, maybe that first week, for some that first day, maybe a month, all of a sudden you realize, man, it's not like just jumping in the car or running down the street. I mean, there is that distance. Now, for some, it's great. They, the farther the better. They're independent and whatnot. But you got to figure that out before you get there, because once you're there, I mean, we talk about this all the time. The athletes that pack in after 1 year and they say, "That's it. I can't handle it. I don't like this." So you really want to consider that. Sounds like you put in a pretty fair amount of time, getting a grasp on what it was going to be like as far as school goes and distance and whatnot.
Right.
Do you have a lot of family local that you like to stay in touch with? Is that kind of one of your motivations?
I don't have many family members here locally, but I have a younger sister, and she's excelling at softball right now. And
nice.
I just like to put in my time and hang out with my family while I can, because I don't know where life's going to take me after college.
That's right. You could be in Washington State,
Yeah, right.
No offense to anybody from Washington State. It's just on the opposite side of Florida.
Yeah.
Well, the process, the whole recruiting process, everything it's just so wacky, and there's so much to think about, so much to go through. I mean, you've got the sport aspect, then you've got the college aspect, and unfortunately, it seems that, and it's not just the media, but it seems everything is geared towards the sport and not really pushing the research portion of, and it's funny, we use this example that we had a guest share with us. You go onto a campus visit, you trip and fall out of the car and you blow your knee out. You're there for visit. Now you obviously know the sport aspect isn't going to factor into your decision. Now what are you going to do? What are you going to look at? And so we just push and push and push that because there's not enough of that. The kids aren't prepared from the collegiate aspect. They're prepared maybe from the sport aspect. They know that the facilities are fantastic, the locker rooms, where they're going to eat. Beyond that, a lot of the kids, they have no answers. Right. But to get the answers, you got to have the questions, and you got to ask those questions. Now, did you go on a lot of school visits in your time at high school, or were you pretty much locked in on UNF?
I was locked in on UNF. I didn't give a lot of schools opportunities. I made phone calls and I talked with other coaches, but I never actually went on campus visits. UNF was the only campus that I actually visited, and I just felt at home there.
Yeah, once you're there, you're there.
Right.
Well, and you hear about this a lot, not just in cross country or track and field, but any sport. You hear a lot about where the kids are like, well, I got an offer, but I'm going to hold out. I'm going to wait and see if I can get something better. Understand that's fine, and especially if it's with a school that you might not be comfortable with yet. But if you go to a school and you really like it, and it's an offer, you do have a decision to make. And it's sometimes it's tough because you're afraid if you do make that decision, what if something better would have come along? Well, you know what? It's a gamble. It's certainly a gamble, but that's why you have to put in the time to research those schools, and really take that time. Talk to your guidance counselor, talk to the admissions people, really kind of, find out as much as you can before you make that decision. We've got a football player right now who is in that position where he's got a scholarship offer with a northern school. He's going to take his visit in January. I said, well, man, if you go up there in January and you like that school, then you might want to go ahead and sign that letter as soon as you can, because that means you've covered all the bases. And It is a cold state up there. So, but be thinking about that, because when you do get multiple offers, what is it that breaks the tie? Right. Not everybody is as lucky as Chris, where you go and you go, this is kind of where I had my sights set. So be ready to make that decision and get down with your parents and talk about that, because it is so important. You don't want to waste a year going to a school and just trying it out, and then then you end up washing out after a year. That's horrible. Right. That's a big waste of time. Chris, let me ask you something now. If you could go back and do it all over again, knowing that you didn't take any visits, and this might be a hard question because you've already spent so much time at UNF, but if you went back, would you have taken the time to maybe make sure and go to a couple of schools, at least 2 or 3 maybe, and take those visits?
Definitely. I definitely would have been more proactive and took more campus visits, give other colleges a shot, and who knows, maybe if I would have took a visit at FSU, I might have liked that campus more. So you just never know.
We're glad you went to UNF, nice and local, and doing real well. So it seems like it's worked out real well for you. I tell you what, we're going to take another quick break, and then when we get back, we're going to break things down just a little bit more. Again, hopefully some more of this information will hit home with you out there and think, wow, this is something that I'm going through, or this is something I never thought about, so I need to start thinking about it. Again, that's why we're here. That's the whole purpose of our show and having guests like Chris on. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back with you.
At Marsh & McLennan Agency, we understand the property and casualty market. We use our technical expertise and utilize a consultative approach to design a risk management program that's just right for you. Some of the many products and services Marsh & McLennan Agency can provide in the areas of property and casualty insurance market include general commercial liability tailored to specific industries, directors and officers, errors and omissions, and other professional liability, workers' compensation, self-insurance plans, construction, fidelity and surety bonds, wholesale, surplus lines, and specialty products, personal lines including homeowners, automobile, and umbrella policies. Let Marsh & McLennan Agency help you identify, plan for, and respond to critical business issues and risks. For more information, call Marsh & McLennan Agency today at 888-292-9806. That's 888-292-9806.
All right, hi, we're back. I'm Roger Tillis, your host of The Breakdown, here with Chuck Olesker and our very special guest, Chris Haynes, runner from the University of North Florida. We've been able to get into some pretty neat information, just kind of find out a little bit more about Chris and what makes him tick, and some things that we're not quite are not quite available to just the common person out there, as far as what it's like at the collegiate level and things that you go through and the decisions that you have to make. And that's where we hope that some of the information we share again today will be of some help. Speaking of which, we talk about the level of training and what it's like. I mean, obviously, it can be pretty darn difficult at the high school level, especially for the top runners. You don't just naturally be the runner. I mean, you have to work hard at it. Now, when you got to the collegiate level, from a training and overall collegiate experience from a sports perspective, how was that transition? Tell us a little bit about some of the differences and some of the pluses and negatives and stuff, getting into the collegiate level.
I'll start with the positives. You're going to get better on the collegiate level because you're doing more volume, you're running more miles. You might be running twice a day as opposed to once a day in high school. Depending on who your coach is in high school, the training definitely gets a lot more intense. I know I went from running only once a day in high school to running twice a day, and I was only doing maybe 40 miles a week in high school, 30 miles a week, and now I'm doing double.
Wow.
I'm doing 80. So it just depends, and also you got to be ready for the commitment on the collegiate level. You got to be ready to commit to your academics and athletics, and it almost becomes a full-time job. You got to keep up with both. Sometimes you got to go get treatment to prevent injuries. You have to put a lot of time into it on the collegiate level, especially Division I, if you want to be good and have any kind of success.
Sure. Now from a grade perspective, as far as studies and things like that, I mean, do you find the balance between, the time that you spend running and treatments and all the other ancillary things that you do as a member of the team? Do you find that there's if you stay organized, a good enough time to get it done and not just get by, but excel from a grade perspective?
Yeah, you have to be very organized. You can't slack off on your academics. You have to make time. For me, the biggest change was me putting my academics first, because I had to adjust when I got to college because the classes might have got a little tougher, and then you have to adjust for the time you put into running twice a day, studying for several hours, tests, papers. It gets a lot.
Sure,
it gets bombarding.
Well, like you said, the key word there is organization.
Right.
And that's something that, again, you don't hear a lot about, and just like tutoring and things like that, don't wait until you're behind the eight ball, try to get a grip on it, understand the better way to be organized and the better way to go about your studies and things like that. For you that are in the high school level, don't wait till it has controlled you. You want to control it. So parents, sit down and talk about it. If you're not quite sure how to help your kids organize their time or become, better suited for studies and things like that, talk to the professionals. Go to a professional tutor setup. Some of these different agencies that are out there. Talk to the guidance counselors at your school, and they'll help out. You might think that you've got it made and that your system is working perfectly. Check it. Find out. Don't wait until it fails and then scramble. So these, again, are things that you want to do. Nothing worse than having an athletic scholarship that you lose because your grades start tanking. And lose you will. Believe me, they don't mess around, especially at the Division I level. I imagine the coaches and the organization probably checks with you guys on a regular basis to make sure your grades are where they're supposed to be.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That makes the running aspect probably look so much better.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Now, now that you're at the college level, I mean, what are some of the great things? I mean, here you are a Division I athlete. I mean, what are some of the neat things of your experience? We hear things like, the training table, man, all the food we can. I mean, tell us about some of those kinds of the perks, if you will.
Well, for us, I mean, our coach, we had a coaching change this past year. Before our coach was Mark Van Alstyne, and now our coach is Jeff Pigg. And they've always treated us very well. They supply us with the gear we need, like as far as shoes. After you run so many miles, you need a new pair of shoes. Sure. Warm-ups are good. Meal money for trips, more than enough. So, I mean, they take good care of us. That's some of the perks.
What about, and I'll kind of backpedal to the grade aspect. As an athlete, if you are wanting that extra help, are they pretty good about making sure that you get the right tutors or specialists or whatever it is that you need to help you be successful as a student?
Our staff, our advising staff is great. You have Dee Kennedy and then Jenny. They're great. They make sure you get the tutoring you need. For incoming freshmen, going to study hall is actually a requirement. So you have 6 to 8 hours that you have to get in, depending on your grades. Usually it was 6 for me. And then you have to hit a certain GPA to get out of study hall.
Nice.
So
nice.
If you don't make the good grades, you're going to stay in study hall. So that's why it's important to, get on the 8 ball from the start and not wait till your grades are suffering to try to change things and do well.
Boy, that's good to hear. And we hear this a lot, and we ask it a lot because we want to make sure that you out there that are listening, that you understand, it's not like you're having your hand held and walk through the process. The fact is, though, you do have these resources that are there. They want you to succeed as a student. They're not just going to say, get out there, make sure you're winning for us, and we'll let the grades take care of themselves. The fact is, they are out there to make you successful. And it's good to hear that it seems like every school setup have the advisors that they're out there and they're trying to, assist the students proactively. So that's something to feel confident about. But it's also something to ask about when you go on your campus visits, when you talk to the coaches. Ask about, what their resources are. Do they have advisors in place to make sure that you have them at your fingertips regarding your studies? I tell you, it's a good way to separate yourself from just the jocks, just looking for an athletic scholarship. It's going to show that you are mature and that you are looking at this as a college experience, not a sport experience. And that will separate you from your competition when you're in that scholarship activity.
I have a question.
Fire away, you betcha.
I know there were a lot of changes for you from high school to college with respect to the physical training aspect. What about from a nutrition perspective? I mean, you're living at home and your mom, dad are feeding you what you can, and you obviously as a runner what you eat. But how is it different because nutrition is such a critical aspect of an athlete like yourself, a runner. I mean, how is it different for you on at the collegiate level?
Oh man, that's a good question. Definitely a good question. Yeah, when you're in high school, you have your parents, cooking all your meals, gourmet meals every night, and then my mom's a great cook. It's almost played a part in my decision to stay locally, but I've had to learn how to cook my own meals, and I think I make sure I get my fruit, vegetables, chicken.
A lot of proteins.
Protein, right. So I've had to learn how to cook my own meals and just try to eat more healthy, not eat Chick-fil-A, take out,
hanging out at Taco Bell,
Yeah.
But do the coaches? Do they? How much emphasis is on the nutrition component?
They play a little emphasis, but usually they let you dictate, how healthy you eat. I think it depends on the program.
Mm-hmm.
I know our coaching staff, they vary a little bit in the decision, but for the most part, you eat what you're comfortable with. Me, I've always tried to make sure I eat healthy. I'm definitely not a vegetarian.
Right.
I love to eat chicken, steak, so I try to maintain that pretty well.
Okay. Very good.
He was hoping that you'd have I pound down at McDonald's and go to the ale house all the time.
Yeah. Just
Sorry,
takes one trip
sorry,
of that.
Chuck.
Yeah. I tried doing that. That's my training table.
Yeah.
It explains why I throw up when I go run. But
Well, we talked about this before the show a little bit. About like speaking of nutrition, the is it myth or is it real about chocolate milk being a good recovery item? And Chris confirmed for us, chocolate milk is a very good post-workout recovery item to take in. Which so Rachel, my wife, if you're watching this, I am allowed to buy chocolate milk when we go grocery shopping. Now, will I use it for a post-workout? Probably not, but at least we know that it has some healthy components.
That's right.
But no, really, and that is true. What is it about the chocolate milk that's supposed to be so healthy?
Well, chocolate, believe it or not, is actually good to incorporate in your diet. I'm not saying go out and eat 5 Hershey bars, but
the pound bag of M&Ms.
Yeah.
the chocolate milk, you need that calcium and you need to replenish what you've lost. It does have its healthy benefits. I mean, just like milk, it keeps your bones strong, and then with the mix of chocolate, it just helps replace those complex sugars that you've lost. So.
Excellent,
Definitely.
excellent. See, so it's not a myth; it is real.
That's
so,
right.
parents, listen to your kids. Wives, listen to your husbands. We'll draw the line at chocolate milk.
Yeah.
Though. That's I can't speak for anything else. Let's shift gears here a little bit. I know that we talk about certain things that are very important. Obviously, your craft is one of them. Your skill in your sport. Grades, number one, above and beyond anything, will create more opportunity. It can make the difference between getting an offer and not getting an offer. So we know that grades are highly important from the word go. Something else that is very important is the community activity. What kind of person are you? Are you involved in the community? Are you helping charities? Are you out there, lending a hand and, trying to make a difference? Chris, let me ask you something. I mean, beyond it being a high school requirement, X amount of hours, were you active as far as community service hours and things like that? Tell us a little bit about what you did at the high school level. And then also, now that you're at the college level, some of those types of things that you're involved in.
As far as being involved in the community and on the high school level, I helped my AAU team once I got to a certain level, like my senior year. I started to help the parents, kind of coach their kids up in the community. And then I've also had a little bit of experience helping out at the local road races. A lot of people enjoy doing those, for their own health benefits. So then I'd help set those races up.
Boy, and it takes a lot of volunteers to pull those things off, man. I got to tell you.
And it's a good way to raise money for your school, and then at the same time you get your community service hours in that way. And then now that I'm a collegiate athlete, I realize that it's more important to get more community service hours and doing other things, whether it's going to the nursing home and helping out the elderly, or maybe working at a garden or something like that. I mean, helping out with animals, whatever interest you have, you can put that forth and help out in the community. I think that's very important.
Sure. I imagine too is once you get in, especially Division I, but I think it's pretty much this way across the board. As an athlete, at a school, at a college, you're not just a representative on the track or in competition, but you're a representative of the school itself. You're an extension of, and so you have to represent correctly. And I know that you guys get out and do a lot of different events and things where you are out there kind of being the headpiece, if you will, for the school. So being committed to the community, it does help. And I tell you, it also, I imagine you forged some pretty good relationships with some pretty good people, as far as, the different areas of the community and what they're involved in. And that's pretty good for post-college because you never, like you said, you're so involved in these races and you said that you're going into sports management.
Right.
So I imagine there's quite a few people out there that you've made contact with that'll come in handy down the road.
Definitely. Yeah.
What now? As an individual, I imagine you conduct yourself a certain way, but from a team perspective, I mean, do the coaches or anybody come out and say, okay, team, we're going to this event. This is how. I mean, do they kind of regulate that as far as some of the events and different things that you do in the community?
Yeah, like we experimented with hosting our own local road race. It was a community thing. We tried to get parents involved of the athletes, and then basically it was like a $20 fee to enter, and then Coach Pig, he had us bring in an X number of participants, and then it's just something to get the community involved. It's a good way to get families together, bring the whole team together, parents, relatives, and then at the same time you're doing something active, something positive.
Right.
And it's right there on our campus. We're using our campus to bring the community together.
Nice.
So it's
I imagine that's probably a pretty good little recruiting tool too. You bring in the younger athletes, and maybe you might have your next Chris Haynes targeted already.
Right.
Well, they're starting younger and younger, so I guess why not with the runners as well?
That's right.
Now, let me ask you something. I mean, obviously you've got a few years under your belt now as a college student athlete and student first. I mean, looking back, summing it up, I mean, what's been your greatest experience? And it doesn't have to be the sport. It could be the college too. But, I mean, just in your whole college experience, what's been one of your greatest experiences for you?
Oh, man. There's so many great experiences.
That's not a bad answer.
I think we hosted the NCAA East preliminary rounds at University of North Florida, and that's when you're hosting the best runners in the world, pretty much.
Wow.
I mean, it's a national qualifier for the NCAA championships that are hosted in different states, but it's the national qualifier for the NCAA championships. You have an East preliminary and a West preliminary. There's only two. And we hosted the East preliminary out of the whole East Coast. They picked our facility to host NCAAs. And I got to be a part of that and volunteer. And that's another thing that I did was volunteer, get some experience and what it's like to be in that setting. Even though I wasn't competing, just being in that setting was it was a blessing. And then just meeting the people, my teammates. We're a family, we're a team, and that's a great experience in itself.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, that facility and the track surface you guys have, that surface is the same surface that they have at the Olympic Stadium there in China.
Yeah,
I mean that's a pretty sweet facility to be able to run in. Now, I mean, do you really notice that much difference between, say, the typical rubber, like a Bowles High School where they have the nice rubber composite type, as opposed to the one? I mean, is there a big difference?
There's a little difference. I love running on our track. There's nothing else like it. I mean, we could host the Olympics. We could host world championships on that track. So,
Man,
it's
not
pretty awesome.
too shabby. Not too shabby. Beats the days of our track was the same thing that the parking lot is made out of, the asphalt. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, man. You'd burn through spikes. I mean, you had to change your spikes after every meet. So, not to mention your knees and everything else. Well, I tell you what, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap things up and see if we can get Chris here to impart some final words of wisdom for you young runners out there looking to compete at the collegiate level. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. There are thousands of high school athletes that want to play at the college level. They just don't get noticed. At ViewMySport.com, we get your game out of the shadows and into the college spotlight. It's fast, easy, best of all, it's free. In the time you can text your friends, you can create and send your own athlete profile to as many colleges as you want. Get to the next level. Visit ViewMySport.com today and follow the 3 simple steps. Why wait? Your competition's not. All right, welcome back. I'm Roger Tillis, your host here at the one more time. I really hate doing this. I don't want to do this anymore. Okay. Hi, welcome back. I'm Roger Tillis, your host here at the BreakDown. Thanks for joining us again. We are going to wrap things up here with our special guest, Chris Haynes, runner from the University of North Florida. We've talked a little bit about a lot of things. Obviously, we could speak for months to really break things down and get into super detail. What our intention is to give you, the parents, you, the athletes, enough information to give you good direction, to give you a little instruction on what you should be paying attention to regarding your craft and your sport at the high school level, and then looking to take it to the collegiate level. Be it grades, be it the sport itself, be it community involvement, whatever the case may be. We will tell you there is no magic pill that you can take. You can't write a check to some recruiting firm that will make it just magically happen. You got to have the talent. You got to have the grades. You got to be active in the community, be a good person of character. There are some basic fundamentals that you can do, and then it's basically fate. There are millions out there trying to vie for these scholarships. The numbers are stacked against you from the word go. But there are the little basic things that you can do to separate yourself from the competition, make yourself stand out. That doesn't mean go and writing a check to a firm and let them do it all for you. College coaches, I'm here to tell you, want to talk to you, the athlete. They don't want to talk to your parents. They don't want to talk to the pay-for scouting firms. They don't want to talk to reps. They don't want to talk to the scholarship matchup for, services that are out there. They want to talk to you. So it's up to you to get your information in front of the coaches, follow up, get on their radar, stay on their radar, and then beyond that, you've done your job. Then it's time to kick things up in the classroom. So again, it's not sexy. It's not, we may not tell you everything you want to hear or stroke your egos, but we're going to tell you like it is. And if you follow what we tell you, if it's meant to be, it's going to happen. If you don't, if you wait for someone else to do it for you, well, chances are you're done. You're done right there. What college coach wants to have a kid come on their team and come to their school that doesn't even want to take the time to put in the effort to get the scholarship? I know I wouldn't. So anyway, that's my little soapbox piece for you. I'll get off and I'll turn it over to our guest here. Chris, let me ask you, in our parting segment, what is your advice for the high school athlete and parents out there that are looking to perhaps follow the same path that you did? What's your advice for these kids and parents?
For the kids, I definitely advise them to keep their grades up at all times, and by up, I mean A's, B's, rarely any C's. And then for the parents, I think it's their jobs to help their athletes, or their kids, research the schools. Mm-hmm. And they need to know everything about the school because they're going to put their hard-earned money into an education for their kids. They need to go out there and look for scholarships. There's scholarships out there. They have scholarships for anything nowadays. And you just have to take the time to put it in. And tuition can be paid through Bright Futures, mm-hmm. as long as they have a high enough GPA. So it's really a parent and kid effort to get that a little scholarship here, a little scholarship there, and then before you know it, you got everything paid for.
Right, right. And you bring that up because, and as we've said before, a scholarship doesn't always mean full ride. There are very few of those. You get a partial scholarship, well, then it may not be enough. You have to find that money from other sources. And that's what you're referring to, these other sources of financial aid that you can apply for. Most all of it you can apply for online and compile that with the sports monies that you get from a school to give you that full ride feel, if you will. Hey, you're not writing the check; it's a full ride.
That's right.
Right.
Excellent.
Definitely.
What else? So you say you've got the grades, you've got the financial aid aspect. What else?
As far as character goes, you just need to be a positive person. If you're positive and you work hard and you're not cocky or boastful, coaches pay attention to that. They pay attention to your work ethic, the attitude you bring to the table, how you're going to impact their team more than just with your running, but, can you be a leader for the team? How are you going to contribute to the team? Are you going to work hard? Are you going to be lazy? I mean, those are factors they take into consideration. And running is a tough sport. It's tough to get out there and run every day and be committed. And you're not going to get a full ride scholarship just off your talent alone. It's not going to happen. It's not football. It's not basketball. It's running. It's not the most popular sport. It doesn't bring in the most revenue. So you have to be proactive and then look for those other scholarships outside of your craft, which is running, and then you got to go from there. And like Mr. Tilla said, it's in fate's hands. After you do all that, then it's in fate's hands.
Well, and there's a lot of success stories out there where kids have done it the right way. You talk about, parents and their children working together, as a team, and it is a team effort. And you're right. I mean, that's something, everybody has a role. The coaches coach. Some of them are very good about helping in the recruiting process, but you shouldn't count on that because really it's not their job. Parents, hate to break it to you, but it is not the high school coach's job to handle the recruiting for you. Some do out of because they have the time or whatnot, but a lot of them who teach, there's so much, so many other things that they have to do. It's a full-time job. And guess what? It's not their scholarship. They'll be the ones that will verify your information and talk to the coaches and give them the 411 on your kids' abilities and character and things like that. But they're not proactively going to go out and do it for you. It's your scholarship. So, continue working with your kids. Kids, work with your parents, work with your guidance counselors and teachers. If you put a good team together, then that's going to be a great recipe for success. Now, success might not necessarily end up with a scholarship. Again, the numbers stack against you, but you got to put forth your best effort. So anyway, I think today was a great show. Chris, I really appreciate you coming out and sharing your story and your information.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm motivated. I think I'm gonna run up to the store and
get some chocolate milk.
Get me some chocolate milk. No, we really do appreciate you being here. And for any of you out there that might have a particular situation, maybe you're encountering something that's a little more difficult, you don't know how to handle, whether you're a track athlete or a cross country or whatever the case may be, if you want to send the questions over, either address them to Chris or to us, we will get answers for you. You can go to www.viewmysport.com, click on the Contact Us button, and type in your question or your situation that you need help with and send it on over. And again, that's what we're here for. We are here to help guide you in the right direction and give you the resources and educate you so that your recruiting process will hopefully be as successful as Chris is here. So with that, I would say we are done. Just remember, going forward, as you go through this grinding process, remember to enjoy the ride. That would be it. Have a great day.